What if the sci-fi shows you grew up watching were actually ticking time bombs primed to outrage parents, censors, and moral guardians everywhere? In the 1970s, the TV universe wasn't just about lasers and aliens. It was a battleground where wild ideas collided with public outrage. Some of these shows sent shockwaves far beyond their screens. Which series rattled nerves, sparked headlines, and made authorities sweat? Stick around, because you're about to revisit the boldest, most controversial TV sci-fi of the 70s. Quark, 1977–78. Imagine a space comedy so ahead of its time, it managed to offend just about everyone, sometimes in the same episode. Quark, NBC's answer to the sci-fi craze, was designed as a goofy parody of the space adventures flooding TV. What nobody expected was the backlash. The series starred Richard Benjamin as Adam Quark, a garbage collector in space. With his oddball crew, including twin clones named Betty and an egotistical plant creature, the show gleefully poked fun at the genre. But Quark didn't stop at lampooning science fiction. It crossed social lines that 1970s television usually tiptoed around. Jokes about bureaucracy, gender roles, and authority set off parent groups who called it confusing and inappropriate. Religious organizations and conservative critics wrote angry letters to NBC about the show's irreverent tone and its willingness to lampoon everything from military life to romantic relationships. The infamous Gender Bender episode, featuring a character who changes identity, sent censors scrambling and gave columnists new ammunition. The network was bombarded with complaints, but Quark never backed down. The humor was brash, sometimes absurd, and always a few steps ahead of its critics. Looking back, Quark feels almost prophetic. It predicted the kind of satirical, envelope-pushing comedy that would become mainstream decades later. In its brief but blazing run, it set the standard for how science fiction could unsettle as much as it entertained. The Tomorrow People, 1973–79. If you want to understand what made British parents nervous in the 1970s, look no further than The Tomorrow People. This was a show about teenagers who suddenly developed psychic abilities, telepathy, teleportation, and more. On the surface, it was just good, clean sci-fi fun. But dig a little deeper and you'll find why newspapers branded it dangerous and subversive. The series leaned hard into the idea that young people were evolving past the rest of society, capable of powers adults could neither understand nor control. For some, this message was inspiring. For others, it was terrifying. Politicians and columnists accused the show of promoting rebellion and encouraging children to distrust authority. The fact that the main characters often had to hide their abilities from adults only added to the anxiety. Church leaders and education boards debated whether The Tomorrow People would erode respect for parents and teachers. It didn't help that the show's special effects, while simple by today's standards, made the psychic powers feel uncomfortably real to young viewers. Urban legends sprang up about kids trying to teleport or communicate telepathically after watching an episode. The press ran wild with stories about the Tomorrow People effect. Thames TV received floods of letters both praising and condemning the show. In the end, The Tomorrow People became a lightning rod for bigger debates about youth, change, and the future. It may not have made anyone psychic, but it certainly made the establishment nervous. Battlestar Galactica, 1978–79. You'd think a show about space battles and robot villains would be pure escapism, but Battlestar Galactica managed to ignite real-world outrage in living rooms across America. This wasn't just another Star Wars knockoff, it was a full-blown, big-budget cosmic epic that pulled no punches. In the first episode alone, the series depicted the total annihilation of human civilization, a move that some said was too dark, too violent, and too much for family audiences. But the drama didn't stop with explosions and space dogfights. Battlestar Galactica also delved into themes that made censors twitch. There were references to ancient religions, prophecies, and rituals that critics claimed promoted occultism or dangerous philosophies. Parents groups blasted the show for its intense action sequences, calling it too frightening for kids. Religious commentators warned about its humanist messages, claiming it undermined traditional values. ABC faced a firestorm of complaints, but the controversy only fueled curiosity. Viewers tuned in, drawn by the spectacle and the sense that this show was going where no prime-time series had dared before. The network defended Battlestar Galactica, insisting it was tackling big ideas in a dramatic way. Today, it stands as proof that a sci-fi series can be both a blockbuster and a battleground for public debate. The outrage didn't sink the show, it made it legendary. Space 1999, 1975–77. What happens when you take the moon, blast it out of Earth's orbit, and send it careening into the unknown? You get Space 1999 and a tidal wave of controversy. This British-Italian series was big, bold, and sometimes bleak. It followed the residents of Moonbase Alpha as they faced a never-ending parade of cosmic disasters. But while the special effects and production design were dazzling, it was the show's themes that sparked the loudest uproar. Episodes tackled existential questions, mind control, and the breakdown of order, heavy stuff for prime time. Critics accused Space 1999 of being too grim, too confusing, and even nihilistic. The BBC was flooded with complaints after episodes dealing with alien abduction and the psychological unraveling of the crew. Some parents claimed the show gave their kids nightmares. Others argued it was poisoning young minds with pessimism and unsettling ideas about the future. The creators defended their vision, arguing that science fiction should challenge and provoke, not just entertain. For fans, the show's willingness to go dark was its greatest strength. It turned Space 1999 into a cult classic and a prime example of how sci-fi television could push boundaries and stir up serious controversy. In the end, the outrage was just more fuel for this moon-powered adventure. Wonder Woman, 1975–79. You'd think a superhero with a lasso and invisible jet would be safe from public backlash, right? Think again. Wonder Woman wasn't just a campy adventure. It was a lightning rod for controversy almost from the start. When Linda Carter spun onto the screen as Diana Prince, the show was hailed as groundbreaking for putting a strong woman at the center of the action. But the plot lines didn't always play it safe, and that's where the sparks flew. Episodes featuring Nazi villains drew outrage from veterans groups who felt the show trivialized World War II trauma for entertainment. Later seasons, packed with occult references, secret societies, and even a few cross-dressing schemes, had conservative watchdogs warning that the show was leading kids down the wrong path. One episode featuring a villain disguised as a woman was the tipping point for some viewers, who bombarded the networks with angry letters and called for an immediate cancellation. Meanwhile, religious organizations criticized the show's portrayal of ancient goddesses and supernatural powers, accusing Wonder Woman of promoting unwholesome values. The network stood its ground, pointing out the show's themes of justice and empowerment, but the controversy never really went away. Instead, it became part of the show's legend, fueling ratings and keeping Wonder Woman in the cultural spotlight. In the end, every angry headline just made her more iconic. She didn't just fight bad guys, she fought the censors too. Colchack, the Night Stalker, 1974–75. Creepy monsters, investigative journalism, and supernatural horrors. Colchack, the Night Stalker, didn't just push boundaries, it gleefully steamrolled them. The show followed Carl Colchack, a rumpled reporter with a knack for stumbling into all things terrifying, from vampires to haunted artifacts. While horror was nothing new to TV, the sheer intensity and realism of Colchack sent shockwaves through American living rooms. Episodes frequently featured grisly crime scenes, shadowy killers, and things that go bump in the night, all at a time when primetime TV was supposed to be safe for families. Parents wrote furious letters to the network and the FCC, demanding to know why their children were having nightmares after watching what they thought would be just another detective show. Even local news stations weighed in, warning viewers that Colchack might be too disturbing for younger audiences. The controversy reached a fever pitch after episodes involving ancient curses and undead creatures. Religious groups accused the show of glorifying the occult and spreading fear. Some advertisers even pulled their support, worried about being associated with a show that critics called sensationalist and dangerously influential. But Colchack's legacy survived the outrage. Today, it's credited as a direct influence on later hits like The X-Files. Sometimes, all it takes is a fearless reporter and a little bit of outrage to change television forever. UFO, 1970-73. Aliens, moon bases, and a military outfit that looked suspiciously like something out of a disco, UFO was destined to cause a stir. Created by Jerry and Sylvia Anderson, this British show was set in the near future, where Earth's defense against alien invaders came from a secret organization called Shadow. But the drama wasn't just on screen. UFO tackled topics no one expected, from addiction and trauma to strained relationships among Moonbase's crew. The show's depiction of grown-up themes shocked audiences used to sanitized sci-fi. There were arguments about chain of command, personal failures, and even heartbreak among the main characters. Some episodes hinted at substance abuse and the pressures of military life, sparking complaints that UFO was too adult for its slot. British censors demanded cuts to certain scenes, while American syndicators hesitated to even air the show in its original form. Fashion choices also triggered criticism. The iconic purple wigs and metallic outfits worn by the women of Moonbase were accused of being too flashy for prime time, drawing complaints from parents and cultural critics alike. Despite the outrage, UFO developed a cult following and set the stage for more mature sci-fi on TV. In the end, it proved that science fiction wasn't just for kids. It could tackle the raw, complicated stuff too. Logans Run, 1977-78. Take a society where no one is allowed to grow old, throw in a dash of rebellion, and set it all in a glittering, dystopian future. What could possibly go wrong? The Logans Run TV series took the provocative ideas from the movie and cranked up the drama for a national audience. The result? Outrage from coast to coast. The show's central premise, that people are forced to renew before reaching middle age, struck a nerve with viewers. Parent groups complained that it promoted dangerous ideas about life and society. Some saw the show as an attack on family values, with episodes featuring characters questioning authority, challenging the system, and championing personal freedom. The network's phone lines lit up with complaints after each new episode. Religious leaders joined the chorus, warning that Logans Run was glorifying rebellion and disrespect for tradition. Others protested scenes that suggested a world without parents or elders. Even though CBS toned down some of the movie's more provocative elements, the controversy never really faded. Instead, it made Logans Run the most talked-about sci-fi show of its short-lived season. If the goal was to get people talking, this show hit the target. And then some. Doctor Who, 1974-81. If you think Doctor Who has always been a family-friendly romp through time and space, the 1970s will prove you wrong. The Tom Baker years were infamous for pushing the envelope, with storylines that dipped into horror, psychological terror, and dystopian futures. The show's most notorious scandal exploded after The Deadly Assassin aired in 1976. That episode featured a dramatic showdown that critics claimed was nightmare fuel for children. British tabloids ran screaming headlines, warning parents that Doctor Who was traumatizing an entire generation. The BBC received thousands of angry letters from parents who insisted the show had gone too far. One memorable scene, where the Doctor is held underwater by a villain, became a cultural flashpoint, cited in parliamentary debates about TV standards. It wasn't just the monsters and scares. The Baker era dove into mature themes like political corruption, mind control, and even existential despair. Older fans loved the darker tone, but the public outrage grew so loud that the BBC briefly imposed new rules on the show, limiting violence and scary content. Still, Doctor Who refused to play it safe, cementing its place as the wild card of British television. Every scandal just made it more beloved. For many fans, these years are still the gold standard, outrage and all. So the next time you think sci-fi TV is just about cool gadgets and wild adventures, remember this. The 1970s proved these shows could shake the world as much as any headline or political debate. From psychic teens to rebellious moon bases, these series set off firestorms that are still echoing today. Which of these outrages shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts below, hit subscribe for more untold TV history, and never forget, the wildest stories are sometimes the ones we tried to ban.